All right, hello. I've been wanting to put together a Warden Healing video for a little while, and since Merothiel is going to be healing some harder stuff, he wanted some help, and so putting together a little video here. A couple of disclaimers before I get started here. Obviously, I'm talking about how I like to heal on a Warden, right? But some of the stuff I think is universal to all Warden healers. I know Vic is making a Warden healer. Barry says she has a Warden healer. I've never seen her play it. And I know Cap is obviously Cap is an advanced Warden healer. But even him, maybe he'll get a couple of tips out of this video. Before I even get into kind of skills, and so what I want to do with this video is talk about how I build my bars out as a Warden, regardless of what gear I have on. I think I'm wearing Spell Power Cure and Martial Knowledge right now, but doesn't even matter really. I'm just going to talk in general about how you build out your bars, and then go over kind of what my rotation looks like, and hopefully this helps. So first off, as a Warden, I highly recommend that you run the Thief. The Thief Mundus is probably the best for Wardens. It gives you more critical. I think it looks like I probably have like 4 or 5 pieces of gear that has Divines. And so I'm getting 8% extra critical chance just by having the Thief on there, which in a lot of ways is really important to Warden Healing. Both spell damage and spell critical, very important to Warden Healing. Wardens in general don't have a problem with recovery, and I'll talk about that, why that's the case with how the bars are set up. If your bars aren't set up this way and you're having a problem with recovery, you might want to try them this way. I mean, you could always switch to the Atronach if you really feel like you need more recovery, but I would advise trying not to do that. You really will lose out on the crit. Your raw healing damage, or your raw healing, will go down quite a bit, and you're better off maybe just heavy attacking here and there to get your resources back if you really need to. So focus on spell damage, spell critical. In order to get this spell damage, this is my stuff without potions, by the way, right? So let me hit spell power potion. And with the spell power potion, you can see, I'm almost at 4,200 spell damage, 45% crit, almost 46% crit, and my recovery went up. 1,500 to 1,800 recovery is more than enough on a Warden. So really like the Thief as my Mundus. I always use Parse Food, right? So that might be part of the reason why my recovery is not an issue. I really recommend doing this. Wardens, particularly Orc Wardens like us, don't really need the added health. So Witch Mother's Brew, even though it's cheaper, not really a great food for healing as a Warden. We already have, you can see here, I already have over 19,000 health, and then Wardens, you'll get 10% more health. You'll see my health go up when I start casting skills because of their class passives, and so usually somewhere around 2,100 or 21,000 health, which is more than enough for all content in the game. Really don't need more health than that, and so it's better to get more magicka, because the more magicka you have, the more spell power you have, and then the more recovery you have from your food, which this is quite a bit more recovery than your typical Witch Mothers, helps out your ability to make sure that you run the Thief. So run the Thief, use Parse Food, first two kind of tips. Okay. I just want to talk about first here kind of how Warden skills work and why certain skills are on each bar. And to start out this video, I wanted to just show you the 5 skills that I think that you can't ever change on a Warden. There's 2 that are very niche that you could change out here, and those would be Blockade and Combat Prayer, but that's almost never going to happen. And I would recommend you never attempt to do that on a Warden healer. We're not a sweaty, super in-game score-pushing guild, and we're just not in a position where taking those 2 skills off your bars would probably be very, very beneficial. So these are the 5 skills that I think you should always have on your Warden. I'll talk a little bit more as I start adding skills in here about why I have certain skills on certain bars. But these 5 skills are important, and the skills are Illustrious Healing, Budding Seeds, the best healing ability in the game. I'll continue to talk about why this spell is so important to Warden Healing throughout the video. Combat Prayer, because it's a burst heal for a group of people, which is usually what you're doing it on DPS, but more importantly, providing Minor Berserk and Minor Resolve. These 2 buffs are really important to both damage and the amount of damage people take. And so Combat Prayer. And then I've already talked about Blockade. I'll keep talking about Blockade. If you're running a Lightning Staff as a Warden, which you probably should be doing, you're providing off balance with Blockade. Off balance not only helps the damage of certain classes like Stamina Sorks, like Night Blades, both Magicka and Stamina, but gives everybody who heavy attacks that target much more resources back. This is why it's super important. It's really helpful as a Warden to use Blockade, because usually the Necro Healer is running Rojo, and they're heavy attacking a bunch, and so they're getting a bunch more resources back. And more importantly than your fellow support, giving tanks more resources back when they heavy attack, right? Because it's hard as a tank to maintain your stamina, and so keeping off balance up at all times, super important. The other kind of thing that's important about Blockade here is that if your DPS staff is the staff that you have infused and with the Berserker enchant on it, the only way that this enchant works is if you use it with a weapon skill. You can see here that I have it actually on my Master's staff, but if it was on my Lightning staff, Blockade would be the only way to proc that spell damage, and you want that extra spell damage, right? That's the whole point of running an infused staff with weapon damage, is to get that up at all times. If it's infused, you can keep this up 100% of the time. If it's on your DPS staff, you must run Blockade, right? So basic stuff. All right, the last skill here is some morph of Swarm. I have Growing Swarm because I'm running Martial Knowledge, so I need to use Stamina. But Fletcher Infection, both of these morphs are good, and they both are helpful. You need to try to keep this up at all times. And the big reason is this second paragraph on the skill tip. The Fletcher flies rip through the original enemy's flesh, afflicting them with minor vulnerability, increasing their damage taken by 5%. That's damage taken for the entire group. And so if your group, like we do sometimes, and we have some of our better DPS there, is doing 500,000 damage, they're going to do 500,050, which is a lot. That's enough. That's almost making up for a whole other DPS in the group, like having 13 players. So minor vulnerability, super important. This skill, or this buff, or debuff rather, is very rare. Only Wardens give it with Swarm, or Necromancers give it with a morph of Totem. And Necromancers typically do not run Totem, probably shouldn't run Totem. We don't usually have Necromancers running Totems, and so you always need to keep this up. Very important skill. So these are the 5 skills I think that don't change. I'll talk as I put skills in here why I have these on the bars that they are on. It makes sense that I have Blockade on the DPS bar because it won't go on the others, and the other 2 healing on my Resto bar. But I like Budding Seeds on the Resto bar, and I like Swarm on the DPS bar. You can see here that I have 2 ultimates set up, right? Barrier and Warhorn. These are just kind of your typical general ultimates that you'll use as a Warden Healer. You can also use trees here if you'd like. This skill is really nice in certain situations, particularly places like Veteran Cloud Rest. That execute phase can be pretty tough, and you might be able to get this off twice in an execute phase. So that's why you would use this over something else. But ultimately, I'm not a big fan of trees. mostly because for me, I don't cast it as soon as I get 90 ultimate. You cast it to help with your healing, and so I feel like I'm wasting ultimate with this skill. It doesn't really heal for as much as it looks like. Actually, barrier heals for more. So you can see here that this heals for 10,000 initially, and then it gives like what 4,000 a second for 6 seconds, right? So that heals for about 25,000, and that's what barrier heals for too. So my barrier heals for 20,000, a little bit less over 15 seconds, but it also gives what a 37,000 you know shield to everybody. So I tend to like this a little bit better than trees, but you can use trees too if you'd like. Okay, so if these are the 5 skills that you must have, right? So you got, illustrious seeds, combat prayer, blockade, and swarm. The next 2 that are very important to wardens, are probably really the next one that's most important to wardens is Frostcloak. The reason why this one is important is that it gives everybody in the group, or this morph of it does, everybody within 28 meters, major resolve. This is super important as a group, mostly because 6,000 resistance, both physical and spell resistance, makes people take less damage. And so not only support supposed to heal people, they're supposed to make it easier on everybody to survive, and this is really beneficial. When I place cloak on my bar, I usually put it on the front bar. I'll talk about why I do it as I put more skills in here, but a super important skill. Either morph of these works. The other morph is Ice Fortress. Ice Fortress doesn't have as big of range, but it also makes you more tanky. Gives you minor resolve as well, and so might be something to use. It probably work really well in trials where you're stacked up real close, and everybody will get the buff. Places like Sunspire, right? Okay. I would say the next skill that's super important to have as a warden is Blue Betty. And there's a couple of reasons for Blue Betty. First and foremost, it's just a nice skill because it costs nothing. It doesn't have a resource cost. You just get to cast it. So that's pretty nice. It gives you a recovery. So I'll show you here my tooltip in a second. My recovery goes up when this is active, right? So it gives you a little bit of extra recovery. It also gives you major sorcery, which is really nice. So if you're in like a normal trial or doing dungeons or something, you can use the cheap Magicka pots, and this is really nice because it gives you the 20% spell damage buff. That's really nice. It also purges things that are on you, which is super amazing. And anytime you use an animal companion ability, you're going to be proccing one of the passives. One of the passives that you're going to use here is it heals as soon as one of your animal companion skills end. Well, if you recast Blue Betty, it will make it end and you'll get a little heal. So super nice, right? What's most important about Blue Betty, and this is why I put this on my back bar, not my front bar, is that down here, your third passive is it increases your magicka and stamina recovery by 12% if you have an animal companion ability slotted. So this is huge. This is 12%. This is half of what a potion gives you in terms of recovery. And so you really want to have an animal skill on both bars, right? And so you could, I guess, put Swarm on your back bar and Betty on your front bar. I'll talk about why I don't do that. I like to have one long skill or 2 long skills, if I can, on each bar that I don't have to worry about in a rotation, right? So Betty on the back bar, Swarm on the front bar, both of those giving us that 12% recovery. So we don't ever lose that 12% recovery. Okay. From here on out, you're just kind of using basic stuff that you may need in a normal trial. And these are similar amongst classes of healers. I typically, for me, I put regeneration on the back bar. I know there's a meme of Flo telling healers not to ever use regeneration. I probably went a little bit far. This is a good skill. I'll show you why this shouldn't be cast as much as all the other skills, though. Um, but powerful skill, one that's really helpful. So this is typically what my back bar looks like. I got regeneration and illustrious and seeds and combat prayer with Betty. I put barrier on the back bar because this gives another 10% to recovery. You're typically going to be on your back bar more than the front bar as a healer, and so this just helps out more recovery. Another reason why I don't feel like I need to run the Atronach Mundus. In terms of the front bar, what you fill out here is very flexible. For the most part, in our guild, because the second healer is almost always a necromancer, it's probably pretty important to make sure that you run altar, right? So I typically run altar. As a warden, most wardens do. I know that Cap runs it too. And so you usually have altar. Altar on the front bar is good because it's another long duration. So it's not something when you swap to your front bar that you have to cast every time you're on your front bar. Both this and cloak that lasts 20 seconds, you really only got to cast, every maybe 2 or 3 times you come to your back to your front bar. And so that's very nice. I got altar on there. And then the last skill that you would have on this front bar is going to be orb. So, healers all should be running orb. There are times where orb's not very helpful. If you're the kite healer, you probably don't need to run orb because it's very slow moving and it only starts where you are, right? So if we take a look at it, it's a very slow moving skill and it's got to be right in front of you, or it's not. If your people aren't in it, it's not touching them, right? So it only works if it's touching me. And so if you're on a kite duty somewhere, you might not use it, but otherwise you're going to want to have energy orb. I like orb on the front bar, not on the back bar. And that's mostly because if I put this on the back bar, then what would I have to do? I'd have to put maybe Betty on the front, or I'd have to put budding seeds on the front, which I don't like to do. Now, why do I not like to put budding seeds on the front bar? A lot of wardens put it on the front bar. Well, not a lot, but some wardens put it on the front bar. And let me explain why. When you're building your bars, there are essentially kind of 2 rules that you should go by. Even though healers and supports in general are able to put, their class skills on both bars, there's 2 kind of general rules. The first one, passives. Now, I already talked about the passives in the animal tree, right? So you want to have an animal companion ability on both bars. So I have Swarm and I have Betty, right? The other thing is with your passives is every green balance ability that you have slotted gives you 2% more healing, right? So what happens here if I put budding on my front bar, then it's giving 2% more healing to the healing spells that I have on my front bar. Well, you're not going to have as many healing spells on your front bar. And your bread and butter healing spells, which are usually grand healing and combat pair, are not going to benefit if you don't have a green balance ability on the back. And so green balance always I like on the back this way. That way, all of my other healing spells are also benefiting from this 2% increase in healing. Just adds a little bit more to your healing. Now, the second reason why you put together bars the way that you are is ease of use for a rotation, right? Now, as I've already mentioned, you're not going to be on your front bar all that often, right? You got 2 long timed skills here that don't need to be refreshed very often, and all of these skills are at least 10 seconds. So orb lasts 10 seconds, swarm lasts 10 seconds, blockade lasts 14 seconds, and so you really do not need to refresh these very often, which means that you have more time to be on your back bar. If you're on your back bar and you have more time, then that's where you want budding seeds, because as you can see here, it's a very short duration. It's a 6-second one. So even though it's a 6-second duration, why is this the best healing skill in the game? Well, 3 reasons really. First and foremost, it gives a very nice synergy. So adding synergies to the players is really nice. Wardens, if I'm running Budding Seeds and I'm running Orb, I'm giving 2 synergies out regularly that your DPS or tanks can click. That gives them, with the Undaunted passives, more recovery, right? So they get things back. The Harvest synergy adds to healing, so it's super nice. So somebody clicks on it, they get a heal. Same thing happens to Orb. Orb is an explosion of healing. If they click on the Harvest synergy, it will give another heal over time. Very important, super nice. So that's number 1 reason why Budding Seeds is so good. Number 2 reason Budding Seeds is so good is the cost. It's only 2,000 magic to cost this ability. That's compared to Illustrious Healing, that's 2,400. Combat Prayer, that's 2,700, which is going to be twice that amount with the patch, by the way, that's coming up. So very expensive for Combat Prayer in the future. And 2,300 for Radiating Regeneration. So it's cheaper than all of your other skills. So cost is cheap. Third reason why it's super important is that this is a heal over time that ticks every 1 second. So let me show you what I mean by that. So you only have 2 healing spells that heal every 1 second. As I mentioned, Radiating Regeneration is a good heal. So let me hit myself with that. As you can see over here, the ticks of the heal heals for a lot. It's 4,000, but it's only ticking every 2 seconds. And in that 2 seconds, anybody that has got that heal on them can take enough damage to where it does not help, right? Budding Seeds, on the other hand, ticks every 1 second, right? And so you're going to see the ticks every second. It's not for as much. It's about half the amount, but it ticks every 1 second. Now, this is another reason why you want as much spell power or spell damage and spell crit, because the more spell damage and crit that I have, the higher those ticks go. It goes every single second. So it's just ticking in there, right? Okay. Third reason why Budding Seeds is so good is that at the end of Budding Seeds, it hits for a ton of healing. So after the 6 seconds ends, it heals anybody that's in that radius, right? Because Budding Seeds is just like Illustrious in that it is this area, this targeted area. So anybody that's in this area, you want your tank, hopefully, and your DPS and you to all be in the area of where you place this, right? So that's why we tell people to stack up. That's why I want you healers to yell at the DPS if they're not stacked up. Because if everybody's stacked up, then everybody can be in on your heal. So let me hit this heal. As long as we're in this, wait till you see what happens when it goes off, right? It non-crit healed every single person in this area for 15,000. Let's try it again here. So if that's going, it's ticking for every 1 second, and then at the end, it's going to hit for a large amount. About 15,000 is about where mine is on my healer when I don't have buffs up. Let's put up my buffs here. And now let's see what it's starting to look like. The ticks are higher, right? Because I have a major sorcery going. And look at that. It crits for 25,000 now. That crit for 25,000 is nice. I mean, that saves everybody. Okay. Fourth reason why this, or fifth reason maybe that I'm on, of why this skill is so important. As you can see, you can activate this ability again to cause it to instantly bloom. This is why Wardens have the highest raw healing in the game. Not only is this a really powerful heal, not only does it have a synergy, not only is it cheap, but you can click it again to immediately get that explosion of healing. This is the highest amount of group healing in the game. There is no other heal in the game that can heal as much as Budding Seeds if you click it early. And so if I just let it go, it goes for its 6 seconds, gives everybody in that radius that little trickle heal, and then explodes. But if I'm in a situation where people are taking a ton of damage, and if they're taking a ton of damage, say I already have Combat Prayer up. So let me do this again. So say I got Combat Prayer up, right? So Combat Prayer is up, it's ticking. Now everybody's taking a whole bunch of damage. Well, sure, I could hit Combat Prayer a bunch of times and just keep trying to heal them, right? But if I hit Budding Seeds again, it's immediately going to hit people for that 25,000. Every single person that is in this radius is going to get a 25,000 heal. This is more, as I mentioned, than trees. This is more than barrier. This is more than any skill anybody has in the game. And so budding seeds become super important to Warden Healing. You don't ever want to let it fall off, though it's okay if it falls off because it will heal everybody, right? And if you're in a bind and need heals, then you can click it again to get that heal immediately. So budding seeds becomes important. All right. Now I just want to kind of go over what the rotation looks like. Before I even kind of show you the rotation, once again, talk about why I have the bars set up this way. Since I have Altar and a Frost Cloak on the front bar, and these don't have to be refreshed very often, the 3 skills that I need to refresh are going to be Blockade, Flies, and Orb. Blockade, Flies, and Orb are going to be skills that I cast in that order. Since Blockade is longer than the other 2 skills, Blockade, Flies, Orb, then I can switch on to the back bar. And no matter what, even if I had to cast all 5 of these skills on the front bar, say these were down and I had to switch over and I cast all 5 of these skills, then Budding Seeds is already ready to be refreshed, right? And so that's what it would look like for a basic rotation, right? So if I have this on and I got Frost going, then I would cast my wall, I would cast my orb, I would have things down. Now I can get all of my skills down all at once, right? And so now, if I go over here to a dummy, you can kind of see how I keep everything up, right? And so real quick here, what does my rotation look like? Well, it looks like this. I start the fight. I haven't even engaged yet, but I have my Betty up. I have my Frost Cloak up. I have Altar up, right? So those are all ready to go. Then maybe people need some heals, and so I throw some heals on, and then I start my rotation. Now I'm just keeping everything up. Before I switch back over to my front bar, I'm going to make sure that I got seeds back up, right? So I got this up, I got that back up. These need to be refreshed. I keep these going, and now I need to go back to my back bar and I need to refresh these. The only skill, as you can see here, that I'm not too worried about that falls off is your regeneration, because that one really is only needed when somebody really needs a heal, right? And so that is going to be variable. If somebody needs that, I might start that on. I see that seeds is going down, and so I would keep that going. I'm going to go over here to this dummy that has a little bit more health so you can kind of see what it looks like. So I'm just keeping all these skills up. I'm only bar swapping when I need to bar swap, right? If people start to take more extra damage, I could hit Budding Seeds a couple times here, right? And everything is still going. Get maybe my Illustrious going, refresh Combat Prayer, come back here, refresh my other stuff, right? Get my seeds going. And so this is what it would look like when I'm healing. I'm also getting in light attacks, right? I'm not necessarily trying to light attack leave, though I kind of just do it by habit now. But as long as you get in a light attack every 6 or 7 seconds, you're in a okay position because you're still built in cold event, right? And this is kind of what it looks like when I'm healing, when we're in a trial, right? And people are running around and we're trying to make sure people don't die, right? I'm just trying to keep everything up as much as possible. And really, once you get good at it and you're focusing and you're not recording a video talking over what you're doing, I don't ever have these things down. None of them have downtime, right? There's no flashing numbers that show that I need to refresh something, right? And so we just keep all those up, and that's how you maintain and how you heal like a warden. All right. Hopefully this video is helpful to you, Merolthiel. Feel free to ask me individual questions if you got them. Hopefully other potential warden healers or even maybe Cap gets something from this video. I'm happy to talk about this with anybody on Discord and get into voice sharing screens if we need to. Otherwise, hopefully this was helpful. All right. Bye-bye.